Hi guys, today's topic is what to do if tenants aren't paying rent. So this is a bit of a tough one right now because everyone's going through this who own a property and is renting their property out, and due to this whole coronavirus epidemic, I put 5 tips together of what I feel that can potentially help you guys out, and I'll go straight into it. Tip number 1 is defer your rent. What that means is basically you are not asking for the rent to come back and be voided or anything like that. You're simply saying that, okay, for now you can't pay the full amount of rent, so we'll go back to paying a small portion, but some sort of portion, and the remaining amount which has not been paid, you can then pay that maybe in the later stages of the year. So what I'm trying to say is you defer the rent and take it on installments at a later date with your tenant. So point number 1 is defer the rent, but make it clear to the tenant that you will be having to pay this back to me at some point in the future. Number 2 is consider reducing the rent as well as agreeing a new rent increase increment at a later date. So what I mean by that again is reducing their rent. So let's just say their rent is £12.50, bring it down to maybe £1,000 or something like that, which is something reasonable, and then agree as well in 6 to 12 months time you'll be increasing the rent again back up to a rate that you think is reasonable to make up for lost time, because it's important you do this and you work a good relationship out with your tenant. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, if a tenant can't pay, advise them to apply for universal credit. Worst case scenario, if they're in 2 months of arrears, you can go to the council and get a direct payment from them with the tenant's consent. So one part of that is if the tenant is behind by 2 months, you can go to the council with their consent. The second part to that is simply if the tenant isn't working and cannot pay for the rent, to simply let them leave. That might be your best option. Simply letting them break the contract off your property, off that fixed term, and letting them leave the property, you can then get a new tenant in that property a lot sooner and a lot quicker, and not wasting any time really. And that's the honest opinion, because a tenant can leave you with a lot more arrears, and then you can't even evict them for the first 6 months. So then you're stuck with in a possible situation where when are you going to receive the next rent? So it might be your best option just to let them leave amicably, ensure that they've left and giving possession back to yourself, and then you then rent the property out straight away again and start getting your rent that you receive for your property. Tip number 4 is go to the bank and ask for a holiday payment. Ensure that this holiday payment is for obviously loss of rent, and try and utilize the government scheme in order to help yourself and safeguard yourself from your mortgage payments, and you can get up to 3 months off this. So that would be tip number 4. Tip number 5. So this is a bit of a checklist of what you cannot do even if the tenants don't pay rent. This is very important for landlords out there who are very frustrated and feel like they can do whatever they want. Unfortunately, the rule of law doesn't allow you to do certain things. So I'm just going to run through these things and make sure you do not do these things for your own safety as well. Entering the property without permission is number 1. You cannot do that. Forcibly removing any of the items of the property or the tenants, you cannot do. Changing the locks, unfortunately, you can't do that either. Signing documentation with new tenants until the old tenants have vacated. So ensure that you don't just give the tenancy to someone else. You can't do that. Unfortunately, I know some landlords have asked me, can you do a rent guarantee on my property? This has all been ceased now because the insurers are aware of COVID-19. People's income is not available to them and their jobs are at risk, so they have put that policy on hold. However, if you currently do have a rent guarantee policy in place, it's worthwhile checking with your insurer to see if the insurer will still back that claim and put something together for yourselves to get back the shortfall of rent that you haven't received from your tenant. But new policies cannot go into any sort of rent guarantee scheme, unfortunately, because that has been ceased. So those are my tips on what you cannot do, even if your tenants do not pay. And the last one is just a bit of advice regarding rent guarantee. So that's my 5 top tips that I put together for you guys. I hope that helps, and if you need any sort of individual advice, feel free to contact me on the links below. But I will be definitely putting more videos out there, so please do like, share and subscribe and grow the channel with us all together. And stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.